George Kambosos Jr. team says that they are not looking to fight Devin Haney. They want the Gervonta Tank Davis fight because they feel like that they can get a bigger name on George Kambosos' resume, and I believe they want that star status as well. Let's talk about it in this video. King Jr. got another video for y'all. So we got some interesting and disturbing news. Well, I'm gonna say disturbing, but as now the new unified lightweight champion at 135, George Kambosos. George Kambosos, we all know. Well, I already knew that he was going to beat Teofimo Lopez. I figured George Kambosos' style was just going to be just enough to beat Teofimo Lopez because George Kambosos is quick and he has fast feet as well. And Teofimo Lopez just couldn't even make the adjustments to beat George Kambosos. With that being said, George Kambosos' team says that they want George Kambosos to go after Gervonta Tank Davis, not Devin Haney. Well, I feel like, I wouldn't be mad about this decision. I think it's a smart decision for the team because Gervonta Tank Davis is a big name. He's the cash cow at 135, and the second cash cow is Devin Haney right behind him. I wouldn't be mad if George Kambosos fought Gervonta Tank Davis. I think George Kambosos will give Gervonta Tank Davis a run for his money. I think George Kambosos, I don't think he will have enough to beat Gervonta Tank Davis because Gervonta Tank Davis has a higher ring IQ than George Kambosos. But if George Kambosos can look at Gervonta Tank Davis, make adjustment, make Gervonta Tank Davis miss punches, I think George Kambosos can do it. But I just don't think that it's not going to be enough because George Kambosos, he's not a defensive specialist. He has good defense, but good defense is not going to be enough to beat Gervonta Tank Davis. And this is shocking to me because let's say George Kambosos Jr. beats Gervonta Tank Davis. Where does this put George Kambosos Jr.? Will he be the cash cow at 135? Will he be the most feared 135 lightweight at that division? I don't know. We don't know where George Kambosos is going to be at in this certain scenario. But with that being said, I think that it's a smart move to go after Gervonta Tank Davis because it gives George Kambosos to get that star status. Now, we know Gervonta Davis is the A side. So Gervonta Davis is going to bring in the crowd and stuff like that because people want to see him. And I don't think that Floyd Mayweather and Little Utterby wants to fight George Kambosos because they're not going to look to go into Australia and try to pay George Kambosos all that money as well because they're going to try to pay George Kambosos more money just to keep him in the States. And I don't think that Leonard Utterby and Floyd Mayweather are even caring about it. And another reason I don't think that fight is not going to happen between George Kambosos and Gervonta Tank Davis is because of the sanction bodies. I don't believe in Floyd. I don't think Gervonta is going to want to pay those. I don't think Floyd Mayweather is going to want Gervonta to get all those belts because, that can take out a Floyd's cut as well. So I think it's smart for George Kambosos. George Kambosos already said this once again. He said this the second time for more proof of evidence. George Kambosos says that he will be ringside at the Devin Haney fight, and we're going to see if Devin Haney is a man of his word and fight me. Devin Haney at this point ain't ducking no smoke. Devin Haney wants to fight everybody. I'm going to say this again. The four kings at lightweight is Devin Haney, Gervonta Tank Davis, George Kambosos Jr., and, I forgot, Teofimo Lopez is supposed to be on that list. He's not. It's Vasily Lomachenko. So those are the four kings, in my opinion, at lightweight. I think it's smart for George Kambosos Jr. to go after Devin Haney because you'll be fighting for the real WBC belt. And if George Kambosos Jr. get all the four major belts in sanction body, he will be a Hall of Famer off the rip because he will be the seventh guy to have all four major sanction bodies in the division for undisputed. And it will really raise his star status because now George Kambosos Jr. will be in our American fan base where he could get the American crowd, and he could try to tap into that Mexican crowd as well. However, how long George Kambosos Jr. is willing to fight. He's still young in his career. George Kambosos Jr. is absolutely in his peak in his career. You know, he's got all the belts and stuff like that. But I don't know if this is true. George Kambosos Jr., basically his team is pressing him to get this Gervonta Tank Davis fight. I don't think it's smart because George Kambosos Jr., this is not an easy fight. I think that it would be more of an easy fight for him to fight Devin Haney than to fight Gervonta Tank Davis, because I don't think that George Kambosos Jr. in championship rounds is going to be able to clinch on and beat Gervonta Tank Davis. I think Gervonta Tank Davis gets his second win. I think George Kambosos Jr. still have a lot of work to do. I think George Kambosos Jr. Doesn't get that second win in championship rounds. George Kambosos Jr. was almost on the verge of getting stopped in the 10th round by Teofimo Lopez. That's just a fact. But George Kambosos Jr., what shocked me is that he weathered the storm. And he also has a chin as well. I admire George Kambosos. I appreciate what he's doing. He wants to fight the best. He wants to rectify his name at the lightweight division. And I think he's going to do so. But if George Kambosos Jr. wants legacy, if he wants his name to really be stained as all the other great fighters throughout our time, he's going to have to go fight Devin Haney. He's going to have to tell Devin Haney, look, I got all the belts. I figure I'm the A side. Come in my backyard. I wouldn't mind seeing George Kambosos and Devin Haney fight in Australia. Now, we know how Australia is, but I just don't think that's going to happen. I think George Kambosos Jr. is an honest guy. I think that they're not going to try to do any shady stuff for Devin Haney or anything like that. George Kambosos Jr. said what he was going to do. He was going to beat Teofimo Lopez, and he did. And I admire George Kambosos Jr. because he's a man of his word. So, with that being said, I think that it's not smart for the team of George Kambosos Jr. to go out to Gervonta Tank Davis. I mean, it's a higher risk and high reward, but at the same time, it's a higher risk and low reward for George Kambosos Jr. because likely George Kambosos Jr. is not going to, maybe he might get $2 million the most, but if you think about it, if Eddie Hearn pays a George Kambosos Jr. a lot of money just to get all those belts, George Kambosos Jr. could get like $5 million a fight. Why fight Tank Davis for like $2 to $3 million? And if you have a high chance of losing against Tank, I'd rather fight Devin Haney for all the marbles. And then Eddie Hearn, you know, if they really want to fight with you, they're going to try to do everything to get the money to you. They're going to try to pay you the max dollars. So they, look, we need you to fight Devin Haney. We're going to pay you this. We'll give you the whole kitchen sink if you come fight Devin Haney. That would be smart for George Kambosos' team to do, because I think Eddie Hearn is willing to make sure Devin Haney gets this fight. I truly believe Eddie Hearn is going to do it, but who knows with Eddie Hearn. But with that being said, George Kambosos Jr. team, they're looking to go after Gervonta Tank Davis. I don't think it's a smart move. Even if George Kambosos Jr. is successful or get a lucky shot or beating Gervonta Tank Davis, which I don't think is going to happen, but if he does beat Gervonta Tank Davis, where does George Kambosos Jr. star status go? Who knows? It might skyrocket or it just might stay the same level as it is today. And George Kambosos Jr. is not a major pay-per-view star. He's just not. He never really fought on pay-per-view like that. So with that being said, it is what it is. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. This is your boy King Jr. I'm out of here. Peace.